Alright, hello and welcome to the newest episode of the V8 Supercars Fancast. I am your host, Kendall. I am here to talk about the last round of the V8 Supercars, and that was at Townsville, the Wattpack Townsville 400. Good two races on Saturday and Sunday. I enjoyed them. Few things to talk about, a few improvements across teams, some controversy here and there. So why don't we just jump right into it? We'll start with the qualifying results for Saturday. First up, Scott McLaughlin with a 1 minute 12.1239. Not a big shock. Can't be surprised that Scott McLaughlin is in first. But second and third are some faces that we haven't seen at the top of the qualifying table in a long time. Jamie Whincup in second with a 1:12.17. And Shane Van Gisbergen in third with a 1:12.2. So we haven't seen Jamie Whincup and especially Shane Van Gisbergen in the pointy end of qualifying in a long time. So hopefully this means that the Red Bull cars are back into qualifying form. They've got single lap pace now and not just race pace, because we've got both our drivers at the top here. And this isn't unusual. This isn't an accident. This happened as well on the next day. We'll just see if it's just an anomaly for Townsville. These things happen. Sometimes they dial it in good for a track and not for the car, so we'll see. David Reynolds in fourth, Craig Lowndes in fifth, so clearly all of the Red Bull cars have got that nailed down. It doesn't seem like an accident to me, because again, it was pretty similar on the next day, and Craig Lowndes has been doing awfully in qualifying this year. So this pretty much confirms that it was the car and not him. Mark Winterbottom in sixth, so good result for him. It's hard to get those Tickford cars up to the top of the order, as we'll see. Tim Slade in seventh. Will Davison, he had two good qualifying sessions. Fabian Coulthard in ninth. Not the best showing from him. And then Rick Kelly in 10th, which is disappointing to say the least, just because he's been so... The Nissan cars seem to have been turning it around. They went a little bit backwards this week, I think. Not terrible, but a little bit further down the order than I would have liked to have seen them, considering how good they were at Darwin. Nick Percat in 11th. Dee Pasquale in 12th, the first of the rookies. Cameron Waters in 13th. James Courtney in 14th. And both of the Mobile 1 cars, the Walkinshaw cars, both of them doing awfully in qualifying across both days. Garth Tander in 15th. Richie Stanaway in 16th. Good result from him. He's the second rookie. Chaz Moster in 17th, so he even qualified ahead of his much more experienced teammate. Jack LeBrock in 18th. Just get that one out there. Jack LeBrock in 18th. The third rookie, not a bad result from him because he's ahead of Scott Pye, the other Walkinshaw car, in 19th. So pretty bad qualifying performance from both of them, to be honest. Lee Holdsworth holding down 20th, where he seems to always be. Heimgartner, again, we've seen him do great things at Hidden Valley. Disappointing to see him so far down the order again. Todd Hazelwood in 22nd. Simona in 23rd. James Golding in 24th. Tim Blanchard in 25th. And Michael Caruso in 26th. A full one and a half seconds off the pace almost with a car that was having issues, which is why he's so far down. So, not the best quality. Not really a huge surprise. It's disappointing to see that the Nissans have dropped down a little bit. A bit of a stronger showing from Tickford, but not much. Mark Winterbottom's in the top 10, but that's kind of it. Everyone else is sort of where they usually are for this year. So we'll just move straight on into the race, which was Jamie Whincup in first place. He dominated that race. He got past Scott McLaughlin on lap 1, I think, and he just left. He just disappeared. I think he was 14 seconds ahead before the safety car came out towards the end of the race. Absolutely ridiculous speed. After all, he has won 10 times out of the 21 times they've raced there, which is a ridiculous stat. Almost 50% of the time they race at Townsville, Jamie Whincup wins, which is absolutely ridiculous. But yeah, he really showed it. He just took off. He was gone. Shane Van Gisbergen in second. He had quite the eventful race. He got overtaken by, I think, both David Reynolds and Scott McLaughlin at the start. I'm pretty sure. And yeah, they left him out long on a bit of a strategy that the commentators were very unsure about. They were very unsure, but Gisbergen's pit strategist is just his engineer he's good. He knows what he's doing because they tend to leave him out longer than other people, and he tends to suffer a little bit. But I think they're just confident that Shane can fight his way back through the field, and that's what he did. He came out behind, I think, Craig and Scott and a few others, and he just pushed his way back through with fresher tyres. And yeah, safety car came out. He was right behind Jamie Whincup. I think it was Scott McLaughlin, Craig Lowndes, and David Reynolds that he was behind, and he got around all of them, no problems. So, he did good. He was further back, and then they pitted him. So, not a bad result. Scott McLaughlin didn't have the best of races. They pitted him quite early, from what I can remember, especially in his second stint. This was a 2-stop race, and mostly for tyres. Fuel wasn't really a problem. They still have to get fuel, but mostly for tyres because Townsville was quite hard on the tyres. So about 20 laps or so, it was a 70-lap race, and about lap 20 they came in, and about lap 40, 45 they came in. And Scott McLaughlin got pitted quite early on race 1. And yeah, so he suffered with weaker tyres and ended up falling down the order a little bit. Craig Lowndes finished well. 4th spot for him. Good job. Nearly a full podium of Red Bulls, but not quite to be. Coulthard really pushed his way back up the field in the later end of the race. I think they also did a Shane Van Gisbergen and ran him long on the initial set of tyres and pushed him back through the field. So good race from him. Winterbottom finishing exactly where he started. Good for him to hold down 6th position. Good on him. David Reynolds fell backwards a bit. As we'll talk about later, he had a few problems with his car on the weekend. So shame for him. Shame for the title fight. Only 96 points as opposed to Gisbergen's 138 and McLaughlin's 129. But there you go. Cameron Waters in 8th, moved up 5 positions, so good job from him. 2 Tickford cars in the top 10, which is nice to see. And it's great to see Cameron Waters not suffering for once. He had an awful weekend at Darwin, and an awful weekend at Winton too. So it's good to see that he's doing a bit better now. Davison, not a Tickford car, but pretty much is a Tickford car. Different team, borrowing the car. 9th spot. Moved down 1 spot, so he's been doing good. He's been consistently the best out of all the Tickford cars, which is surprising, considering he's not a Tickford car. Percat rounding out the top 10, followed by Slade. Heimgartner moved up 9 spots, good on him. Mostert, Scott Pye also moved up 5. Rick Kelly in 15th. I'm not sure why. I don't quite remember why he got pushed back so far. But again, disappointing to see the Nissan sort of lacking a little bit this week. As opposed to how strong they were the last couple of rounds. James Golding up 8 spots into 16th, which is fantastic effort, especially considering where his much more experienced teammate ended up. James Courtney in 17th, I believe, suffered a penalty. I could be wrong. I think he might have been spun around. Yes, I believe he was spun around by Garth Tander, who finished in 21st. Some old blood there. I'm going to roll your eyes whenever something happens between these two. It just always seems to be these two. Lee Holdsworth in 18th. Pasquale in 19th. Hazelwood in 20th. Tander in 21st. LeBrock in 22nd. Stanaway in 23rd. And Blanchard 24th. And Simona in 25th. And Caruso not classified because he didn't start the race. He had an alternator problem, and his car just gave up before on the formation lap. So, Stanaway, though, is probably the one that we should be talking about. His race, an interesting time. They came in there was a late safety car. A couple of people pitted in the hopes of jumping through the crowd, through the safety car. Stanaway was one of those people, and afterwards, he was seen drifting around the circuit, just full on popping skids around. At the time, Most people just pinned it down to frustration, being at the back of the field. Afterwards, though, a bit more came out of it than that. So apparently he went into the pits to put on what he thought was going to be green tyres, and they gave him old tyres that gave out on him towards the end. So in response, he just started doing drifts around the circuit. He still finished above Blanchard as well. So he was and Simona. He still finished ahead of them. Both of them a full further lap down than he was. So yeah, it's got to be frustrating. But yeah, he was given bad tyres, and he got mad. He seems to be a bit of a hot-headed dude, because it's not the first time he's gotten upset with his position in Tickford. It's unfortunate. He's joined the team at a really bad time. He's a rookie and he's clearly pretty good. He finished the best of the Tickfords at Winton in the top 10. But that's the only track on the calendar that he's been to before, if I remember correctly. So they kind of expect him to do better. The fact that once he's on an even playing field with his more experienced teammates, though, he does better than all of them is pretty impressive in a car that's not great. Yeah, he was told to stop drifting around because he was going to ruin the engine, and that's kind of fair enough. So I feel bad for Richie Stanaway, but that's the way things are. I hope Tickford either improves and he stays with them, or he jumps into a better team, because he's got talent. He's definitely got talent. So that was race 1. Nothing too shocking there. Good to see the Red Bull cars at the top again and not, scrabbling through the pack. We might actually have a championship fight on our hands now, which is good. So we'll move on into the next race, race 18 qualifying, with Shane van Gisbergen in first place. He was in 4th, and then he pushed to get into first on the new set of green tyres, and I don't know why. I honestly don't know why they did that. There's a top 10 shootout for this qualifying session, and for whatever reason, their team thought it was a good idea to push him from 4th into first, even though he was pretty safely in the 10. Yeah, I honestly don't know. I mean, it didn't make a big difference in the end, but that was an interesting choice. Scott McLaughlin in 2nd. So, for comparison's sake, Gisbergen got a 1:12.25, which is slower than yesterday's qualifying, and Scott McLaughlin got a 1:12.4, so quite a big gap between them. Jamie Whincup in 3rd of a 1:12.4, so a bit closer that time. Rick Kelly with a 1:12.4 again, so the top, without Shane van Gisbergen, very close field. It's good to see Rick Kelly back up into a good spot. 4th is a good result in qualifying for him. That's where I think he should be at this stage. David Reynolds in 5th of a 1:12.6. Will Davison, again, just ever present in the top 10 for qualifying, a 1:12.7. James Courtney, good effort from them, the Walkinshaw cars, to improve them so much from race to race, a 1:12.7. Craig Lowndes in 8th. Not as good as Saturday. Scott Pye 9th with 1:12.8 as well. Barely anything in it. Craig Lowndes got a 1:12.8020, and Scott Pye got a 1:12.8071, so not a lot in it. Nick Perker in 10th. Caruso in 11th, much better result from him. Moster, the first of the Tickford cars, in 12th, followed by Winterbottom in 13th. Heimgartner, again, more where I'm used to seeing him lately, in 14th. Tim Slade in 15th. Simona in 16th, so all the Nissans doing pretty good. Lee Holsworth in 17th. Coulthard in 18th. Awful qualifying for him. Awful. I'm not sure if he's just not good at this circuit, but 2 bad qualifying sessions doesn't reflect too well on him. LeBrock in 19th. Cameron Waters in 20th. Awful qualifying for him as well. Stanaway in 21st. Hazelwood in 22nd. Blanchard in 23rd. Golding in 24th. Tander in 25th. Rounding out the last of them, Di Pasquale in 26, who pretty sure he crashed his car right at the start of qualifying, and they couldn't get him out to do a lap. So, unfortunate for him. both the Gary Rogers cars at the back, they were complaining that they had bad cars, which is why it's interesting to see that Golding finished so much better than Tander, because they both complained about having pretty dog cars for both the rounds. So that's qualifying. So we'll move into the top 10 shootout, which of course happened afterwards. And we'll start at first place with Shane Van Gisbergen with a 1:12.1, so even faster than his qualifying, and a full 200 tenths of a second over Jamie Whincup with a 1:12.3. So first and second, Red Bulls locking down the field. Rick Kelly in third, good job for him. Improved his spot by one spot. Improved his qualifying by one spot with a 1:12.4. David Reynolds in fourth, again moving up one spot with a 1:12.4. Will Davison in fifth, again moving up one spot with a 1:12.5. Craig Lowndes in sixth with a 1:12.6. And Scott McLaughlin in seventh place with a 1:12.6238. So, well off the pace during his lap. Well off the pace, which is unusual for him. He usually dominates at this sort of thing. So, there you go. It happens to everybody. Nick Percat in 8th, James Courtney in 9th, and Scott Pye in 10th. The Walkinshaw cars in last. But at least they made it. So that's good. That's good to see. And then we'll move into the race. Shane Van Gisbergen and Jamie Whincup, no question, one of the Red Bull cars was going to win. It was just a question of who. Ended up being Shane in the end. Good drive from him. He made a good pass on Jamie towards the end of the race to get in front of him. And then from then on, he pretty much just commanded it. He was threatened by Jamie during the safety car. Jamie clearly knows his stuff around this track. He's clearly knows what he's doing. But Shane held on to it. First spot for him, keeping that championship hope alive, because Scott McLaughlin finished in third, coming up from 7th, and good job to his team. Excellent job by his team to bring him up to where he was. Scott didn't seem to be driving particularly well. He even said so after the race. But just strategy. They really know what they're doing there. It's so many times it's happened that Scott is finished qualified or something down the order, and he just gets bumped up through pit stops. It's just pretty incredible to see how good they are at doing that. And again, Craig Lowndes in 4th, so 2 Red Bulls, Scott McLaughlin and Craig Lowndes. The order for both the races, just Shane and Jamie swapped around. So a bit of a... If you're not a fan of one of those two, could be a bit of a yawn fest, but that's okay because we're getting a championship fight coming, and that's what's important, that we get those consistent fights race to race. Chaz Mostert in 5th, so he actually legitimately had car speed too. He fought his way through the field to get to that spot. Wasn't pit stop strategies, wasn't crashes, wasn't DNFs, anything like that. He legitimately pushed his way up through the field during green race conditions to get to where he was. So good job for him. Great to see one of the Tickford cars in the top 5. It's been a long time. They haven't had a podium this year yet. So it's coming. I feel like it's coming. If I were them, I probably would just scrap the development of this car if there is any development going on and just focus on next year's. Clearly there's something wrong and I would just invest it into next year's car. But there you go. We'll see what happens with them later in the year. David Reynolds in 6th. He dropped 2 spots because he mentioned after the race that he had some suspension issues. So he wasn't, if you're a David Reynolds fan, he wasn't just garbage. He wasn't just losing spots for no reason. He actually had difficulties driving his car because it was broken. So if you're a fan, that's good to hear. Rick Kelly in 7th. Not a bad performance from him. He got a little bit swamped towards the end. But it's better to see him in 7th than it is to see him in 15th, so I'm glad for that. Fabian Coulthard again pushed his way back up through the field, only finished in 8th, but 10 positions gained is pretty good, but not as good as Cameron Waters, who gained 11 positions to finish in 9th. Again, excellent drive from him, 2 races in a row, and it's good to see 2 Tickford cars in the top 10. James Courtney in 10th. Not a terrible drive from him. He mostly kept himself out of trouble this time. Heimgarten in 11th, pushing up 3. He had a bit of a rocky start. I think he got pushed around quite a bit at the start. So good job on him to get back to where he was. He's the second of the Nissans. Mark Winterbottom in 12th. Again, not terrible for Tickford. So it's good to see 3 cars in the top 15, 3 out of 4. Nick Percat in 15th, Tim Slade in 14th, Nick Percat in 13th, Tim Slade in 14th, Lee Holdsworth in 15th, James Golding again in 16th for the second race in a row, making up 8 spots, so good on him. Di Pasquale in 17th, making up 9 spots from not qualifying. Slightly controversial where he finished in the end. I believe he technically finished the race further up than that and was classified further down because of an incident with Michael Caruso, where if you haven't seen the race, he just completely runs into the back of him into a braking zone. I've watched it a few times. It's hard to tell who's at fault, to be honest. He was penalised in the end. I don't remember by how much. I wonder if I've got it here, actually. I mean, from the footage, it definitely looked like it was Pasquale's fault. It's basically what happened coming into the third to last corner, the second last hairpin there. Pasquale tried to make a move on the inside, and Caruso covered before the braking zone, as far as I can tell, and Pasquale just ran straight into the back of him. And sent Caruso careening off into a tyre barrier, which he ran into it at quite a speed, moved the whole tyre barrier. So, not the best crash, obviously. He got out fine and walked away from it okay, but yeah, like, it really depends on whether or not Caruso moved inside the braking zone, and the stewards have decided that Pasquale was deserving of a penalty, so clearly it was outside of the braking zone. I don't know how he ran into him. I'm not sure. It's not Formula 1 where you just lose downforce. He should have been able to brake fine. I'm not sure what happened then. But anyway, outside of what I think, the stewards awarded him a penalty, so he ended up finishing in 17th. So still not bad because LeBrock finished in 18th. Garth Tander in 19th. Not as good as his teammate. Although I do think he was given a 10-second penalty for... I can't remember if it was on Sunday or Saturday, but he spun around James Courtney at the start of the race. It was probably, considering where James Courtney started and where he started, it was probably on Saturday. So maybe he just had a dog race. Garth Tander being the first of the cars that were all lap down, followed by Richie Stanaway, Scott Pye, who was given... I believe he had to make a third pit stop because they put the wrong tyre on his car and he had to come back in. So that would have sucked. Ruined his race. He was in 10th at the time, so he was in contention. He was in for a bag of points. And yeah, his team lost him basically all those points. Simona in 22nd, Todd Hazelwood in 23rd, and Tim Blanchard in 24th. Not classified, Michael Caruso, as I said before, and Will Davison, who was... I don't even know what happened. He crashed in like the last 2 laps of the race, and I don't know why. They never, the race was over and they never showed any replays or anything. And he went into the wall really hard. I don't know. I don't even know what happened to him. And there hasn't been any news since, as far as I can tell. Yeah, I actually don't know what happened to him. I believe he got tangled up with one of the other cars. So that was the order of race 18. There you go. Sorry, I just gotta get my notes together. Alright, on to the championship standings. It's still Scott McLaughlin in first with 2,033 points, followed by Shane Van Gisbergen, who has closed the gap. Going into this weekend, it was 160-something. Now it's 131, so he's made up about 30 points on him, which is good. It's good. He's still almost a whole race win away from him, so Scott's still got quite a comfortable bumper, but we're getting closer. This is what we want. And there's still plenty of races to go. So should Shane continue to perform as well as he has, we might get another interesting title fight like we had last year. miles behind David Reynolds in third with 1,646. So he's a full 387 points away from Scott. I think it's too early to write off anyone else. I think David Reynolds, Dean Whincup, Craig Lowndes could still be in this, but they need to do consistently better than they are. Jamie had a good show this week. If he continues to perform as consistently, then he might be able to stay in it. But David's a little bit too inconsistent for my liking. Just a little bit. I don't really like him for the championship this year. Unless he really turns it around coming the next few weeks. I don't really like it for this year. Same with Craig Lowndes. These fellas are all about 400 points off Scott McLaughlin, 387 for Davey, 403 for Jamie, 431 for Craig. And yeah, I don't really like... I know Craig Lowndes said that he's still chasing the title for this year, which would be good. He has announced... Well, I'll leave that for the news section, but it would be good to see him challenging for the title this year, that's for sure. I just don't think he has it in him, especially being the second car, basically, the second team of Red Bull. They're not pushing for him to win. So as nice as it would be to see him winning, I don't like David or Craig for this. Even Jamie, I think, is a little bit too far away. Unless Scott has some really shocking races in the coming weeks, I really don't see anyone else but Shane being able to challenge him. I really don't. But anyway, continuing on, a whole 200 points clear from Craig Lowndes is Fabian Coulthard in 6th, so he's pulled up a few spots. I believe he was behind Scott Pye coming into this weekend. Scott Pye now in 7th, Rick Kelly in 8th, so I want to see Rick Kelly up near Craig Lowndes. That's where I think he deserves to be by the end of the year. Around 6th, around 5th, that's where I think Rick Kelly should be. Chaz Mostert still holding on 9th, followed by James Courtney in 10th. Tim Slade, Nick Percat, Mark Winterbottom, Garth Tander, Will Davison, Michael Caruso, Cameron Waters, Andre Heimgartner, Di Pasquale, I believe is the first rookie. Yes, he is. Jack LeBrock, Lee Holdsworth, Simona, Todd Hazelwood, James Golding, Tim Blanchard, Richie Stanaway in last, unfortunately. I honestly don't think that his position in the championship really reflects his driving. He's been good at driving. He's just had rotten luck, absolutely bad luck, complete, utter bad luck, and then also just in a dog car. You know, what can you do? And James Golding sort of leapfrogged them all because he had such a good showing this weekend, so good on him. Anyway, onto the constructors. It's really a two-horse race. Red Bull with 3,532, and then Shell with 3,463, a 70-point difference, followed by Walkinshaw Mobile One Boost Mobile Racing with a whole 912-point difference. So it's absolutely a two-horse race. It always was going to be this year. It shouldn't be like this. Walkinshaw and Tickford should both be further up than they are. Even Nissan should be further up than they are. You know, in a perfect world, BJR would be up there as well. Obviously, Erebus is never going to contend for the title while they've got their second driver filled by a rookie. But they are in 4th, just behind Walkinshaw, followed by Bottle and Super Cheap, which is Winterbottom and Mostert for Tickford. Freightliner, which is BJR. Castrol Racing and Plus Fitness Racing, which is Rick Kelly and Michael Caruso in 7th. Gary Rogers Motorsport in 8th. Drive Racing and Team Harvey Norman, which is Simona and Andre Heimgartner in 9th. Lowndes in 10th. He's just a team on his own, and he's in 10th. Ahead of Cameron Waters and Richie Stanaway. Lowndes all by himself has more points than Cameron Waters and Richie Stanaway combined. Milwaukee Racing, which is, again, just a team on its own. Will Davison, a team all by himself. Jack LeBrock, Techno, it's only Jack LeBrock. Preston Hire, which is only Lee Holdsworth. Big Mate, which is Todd Hazelwood, I believe. And Team Cool Drive, which is Tim Blanchard in last place. So those are the championship points for the race. Currently. What did you think of the race? Let me know in the comments below. So now we'll move into the news. First off, with the Mustang coming, we've got some news that DJR, or Team Penske, is converting an existing Falcon into a Mustang to test it for next year. So work is coming along nicely for the Mustangs. I'm excited, to be honest. I want to see the Mustangs coming around. It'll also mean that Tickford might completely change the game, having new cars. They'll be different to drive, of course. Not these are professional race drivers, but they will be different to drive just by nature of having a different chassis. The aerodynamics will be different, all that stuff. So it will be interesting to see how that shakes up the field. It probably won't shake it up too much, but hopefully Tickford can improve and get a new car in the process and really build up some sponsorships and things like that, because they're not doing too good at the moment. We got some news from Will Davison, who is just unhappy after the last race, and I can't blame him. He had an accident with Jack LeBrock, so he did have an incident with somebody, and LeBrock was penalised for it. So he was... so he was pushed out of the way by Jack LeBrock, which I did see during the race. I did replay that, and then he fell back through the field and was taken out by James Golding. So that's why he crashed. He was taken out by James Golding after falling back through the field due to contact with Jack LeBrock. And then Jack LeBrock was then given a 15-second penalty, which put him back from 11th to 18th. So, good on... I mean, that's a shame that happened, but Will Davison says he was treated like a ping pong ball. So, that's the news from him. It's a shame. He was doing well, and I feel bad for Will Davison. He's had a bit of a rough year with the Tickford car, just like everybody else with a Tickford car. So it was nice to see him up the top and doing well, and then he just got a bit slaughtered towards the end, but that's okay, because Di Pasquale and LeBrock were both penalised for their incidents. LeBrock, like I just talked about, 15-second penalty, and Caruso and Di Pasquale with Caruso's crash being Di Pasquale's fault, supposedly, and penalised as a result. And that's that's not really a surprise for either of them. It was pretty clearly, especially in LeBrock's case, his fault. It's disappointing to see LeBrock get penalised, though. He was doing well. 11th is a good place to be for a rookie. And I honestly think he's quite a strong driver ever since he finished 5th in Simmons Plains. But there you go. That's a shame for everyone involved. Todd Hazelwood was involved in a crash on Saturday, which popped his shoulder out, dislocated his arm. He was driving with one arm for the rest of Saturday. And then on Sunday, he was in so much pain that he had to drive off one arm again, with his shoulder strapped. His pain was he got his shoulder strapped for the race, but he was in such pain that he couldn't make it to the end without using just one arm. So he was using one arm to steer and change gears, which is pretty incredible. He also had a problem with his cool suit, I believe. Yes, his cool suit failed on the grid, so right at the start of the race. So he was driving with one arm, and he had no fresh air. So when he came in for a pit stop, I believe his first one or his second one, they literally bashed out his driver's side windshield, which would have done nothing to help his aerodynamics, but it made him cool, which is important. And he finished the race in... Actually, I don't remember where he finished the race. It was I think it was lower than 20th, but not last, which is... It's honestly pretty impressive to not finish in last when you've got one arm to drive a supercar. So good on him. Good on him for that. And we've got the only other news for the big news for this week is that Craig Lowndes has announced that he is retiring at the end of the year. So this will be his last year as a mainstay V8 Supercars driver. Next year he will be a co-driver only for endurance events, just like many great drivers do when they retire from full-time racing. The man's 44. He's been racing since 1996, I believe, in V8 Supercars, so it's not like it's unexpected. He's getting on a bit. But it is sad. It is sad to see such a legend go. Just like all the other great drivers that have retired recently. Hasn't been one for a while now, but that'll mean that the oldest man on the grid, I believe, is Garth Tander after this, who's been around since 2000 or 1999. Since he was dropped from Walkinshaw, I wouldn't be surprised if he retired in the next 5 years, next 3 years sort of thing, pretty soon, I reckon. But yeah, this one's about Craig Lowndes. It's sad to see him go. He is a legend. He is a fantastic driver. He's a 3-time champion. He has said that he's still going to go for the 4th this year. And I don't blame him. He's still in contention, just. I think he can do it, but he needs the backing of his team, and I just don't think he has that. Everyone at Red Bull is going to be going for Shane. They're not going to be going for Craig, unfortunately. And if it comes down to it between the two of them, they're going to pile in on Shane, or even Jamie, before they go in for Craig, which is unfortunate. I would like to see him come out with one more championship. What a way that would be to end his career. Because it's been a long time since he actually won a championship. He's been dominating V8 Supercars for ages, but he hasn't won a championship since, I think, 2000 or 1999 or something like that. So, legend driver, legend racer, but not surprised that he's retiring. It does make you wonder if Red Bull will they be filling that seat with someone, maybe a rookie? Will they keep the team at all? Maybe they'll just collapse the team into 2 cars. I don't know. I honestly hope to see them pick up someone and bring them into their team. Maybe Richie Stanaway, maybe Jack LeBrock. That sort of thing. That'd be interesting. Because I believe James Golding and maybe even Richie Stanaway are just locked into their teams. But Jack LeBrock, he's in Techno. There's only 1 car at Techno. So it'd be nice to see one of these new young people come up. Maybe even one of the rookies from Super 2 currently coming in, or even just someone from the field that deserves a bit of a break, like Tim Slade. I know he can do better than he does. He's consistently done well. Maybe Nick Percat. He's already won Bathurst. Percat. So there's opportunities there. We'll see what they do. I wouldn't be surprised, honestly, if they just collapsed it into 2 cars. It would be make a lot more sense for them to just collapse the teams. Like why bother with basically 2 teams, 1 real team in inverted commas and 1 not real team in inverted commas. But I wouldn't be surprised if they went that way. But I would like to see them pick up somebody and try and get them going. It could be like a semi-reserve driver spot where they just pick up new talent, try and train them up, that sort of thing. That would be interesting to see. So we'll see what they do with that next year. But for now, at the end of the year, the news is Craig Lowndes is retiring. So that's how things are at the moment. So next round in 2 weeks from the last round, we will have the Coates Hire Ipswich Super Sprint at Ipswich in Queensland. So that will be good. Always a good one. That's on the 20th of July. That starts and finishes on the 22nd. So races will be on the 21st and 22nd. Same weekend as the next Formula 1 race, which is going to be at Germany. So there you go. They're lining up again for the first time in forever. We've got 1 qualifying session, 1 race, 1 qualifying session, 1 race. So no top 10 shootout for Ipswich, but there will be additional drivers because I can see on the schedule that there's additional drivers practice. So maybe what's his name? Macaulay Jones, that's his name, from Hidden Valley, will come back for BJR. Maybe we'll get some new cars, some new drivers, that sort of thing. That'd be good to see. It's always nice to see some rookie drivers, some additional drivers racing with the rest of the big boys. Good to see where they finish and how they do. But until then, until the next episode of the V8 Supercars Fancast, my name has been Kendall. It's been good to see you. I haven't seen you at all. It's been good to talk to you today about the V8 Supercars, and in 2 weeks I will be back to talk about the results for the Coates Hire Ipswich Super Sprint. Thank you, and I'll see you later.